Good morning, everybody. We're going to pick up from Daf Kuf Nun Ches Amud Beis by the two dots. And Yetzer Hashem, we're going to try to get all the way to the Mishnah on Kuf Samech Hey Amud Beis. Let's jump right into it by the two dots. Amr Loi Ben Azai Ala Chalukin Anu Mitztarim. So we learned in the Mishnah when Machlekes B'Sham Beis Hillel, the previous Mishnayos, regarding if we say Achleiku. However, in our Mishnah, they both agree that we say Achleiku. And Ben Azai tells him Achalukim and Amitztarin on Rabbi Kiva, because Rabbi Kiva says Ma'ide bezuani shanachasim echazkasan. So Zok the Gemara Amr Samloi Ada Amra. This statement, the way that Ben Azai spoke to Rabbi Kiva, shows us that he was what? Ben Azai was a Talmud Chaver de Rabbi Kiva Ave. Why? The Kamal Shabasan. Rabbi is masber that Ben Azai was definitely a Talmud of the Rabbi Kiva, but now that he spoke to him as a third, not as a third person, he didn't say Rabbi, rather he said you. It shows that he is, right now, considers him like a colleague, like a friend, but not like a Talmud. Sholchu mitam. They sent from Eretz Yisrael the following halachas. Taisus and Kufna Tesam and Aleph, the bottom, explains that they sent, we're going to see there's 5 different halachas that they sent from Eretz Yisrael, and one of them was Shver. So we're going to try to go through all of them. The Gemara is going to go through Shakavitarya to figure out which halacha that we sent was Shver. So let's jump through the first one. Sholchu mitam. Ben shalava benichse aviv bechaya aviv. You have a son. He borrowed against the properties that he was hoping that the father, that he's going to get, and he's going to be Yerush of the father. However, the reality is, umeis. The halach is, benoi maitzi miyad lekuchais. And the son could go over to the lekuchais and take away the nechasim. Bezui shakasha bedine mamoinus. And this is what shver. How do you understand that a son can go and take away the nechasim? So right away, the Frektik Mar doesn't make sense. Lava, my mafik. If we're talking about he borrowed money, he didn't sell anything, so what is he taking away exactly? Lekucha is mayavite. What shaykhs to the lekucha? Just because you borrowed money, why in the world should you be able to take it away? Aliyit ma hachiyit ma. Rather, the Gemara says you're right. We made a mistake. It cannot be that we're talking about just a father and his son. That his son went and lent money. Rather, it's a little more complex. The case. Rather, we're going to say the case is that it's a 3 generations. There's Ruvain, Yaakov, and Chanoich. Ruvain went and sold the nechasim of Yaakov, banking that by time the sale was done and everything, he's going to be Yerushim, because the father was old, and Lamaisa, what happened was, Ruvain died first. So now, Chanoich goes over to the Lekuchas that bought those Nechasim, and he takes it out. So Zok the Gemara as follows. Eliyit mahachi yitma man kufna tesem at aleph. Ben shemachar benichsei aviv bechaya aviv. A son sells the father's Nechasim, umeis. And then he himself dies before the father. The halach is, B'nai maitzi miyad lekuchas, which means the grandson. The grandson comes and takes away the nechasim. V'zui shekasher b'dinei mamoinus. And this is what shver. The hainu what shver? The Gemara explains that what? V'leim rulei. Why can't the lekuchas taina and say avucham and mazbin ba'at mapik? Your father sold us the nechasim. Why in the world should you be able to come and take it away? So right away the Gemara questions this and says, what shver? Umay kusha. Dilmi matzi amar. Let the grandson come and say, Mikoyach avua da'abakasina. I'm not coming from the schos of my father, rather I'm coming from the schos directly being Yerush, my grandfather. More than that, where do we know such a concept? I'll bring your raya, the chsiv. It says in the pasuk, Tachas avesecha, under your father, you benecha, tishisemai lesarim bechala aretz. And there's Bamas Masber, should have said in the pasuk, Tachtecha yeyu benecha. And that we see from the pasuk that what? That a son is taking over and taking out the father and going direct to the grandfather and getting what instead of what his father, rather it doesn't go through the father himself. So therefore, this can't be shver. That's why the son has a taina to take away the nechasim. Taisus does say that avado, the mecher would never really be a mecher. Even without this taina, how do you understand? The father was never Yerush. The father died. So Taisus learns, it's not about the mecher, rather it's returning the money, and shibud ayin chum. Ella e kashu on the second thing they sent from Eretz Yisrael, they were trying to figure out what shver li kasha or kasha. Ben bechar shemachar chelik bechayra bechayav. You have Reuben, he's the bechar, and he sells the chelik of the bechar umeis bechayav. The halach is benoi maitzi miyada lekuchas. The sons could come and take it away from the lekuchas. Vizu shekasha bedinim aminus, because again they could have the exact same taina. Avua mazbin you mapik. Your father sold us the bechayra. How in the world you should be able to come and take it away? And you're going to tell me, oh, maybe the son's going to say, like we just said earlier, of Tachas Avesecha, let the son say we're not being Geiris our father, rather we're going straight to the grandfather. Frektik Mar, that can't work. If you're telling me you're taking out your father's place, rather you're being Yairish your grandfather direct, what sheikh is, you're not a Bechar, your father was the Bechar, and you tell me we're not Yairish the Bechar. Elamai, we're back to square one, that this is what Shver. And that the Gemara says, that's not so Shver. You're right, we're coming, Taka, we're being Yairish the grandfather. However, you know how we should consider the grandson? Reuven's Chanoich, which is the grandson, says, you know what you should consider me? I am taking my father's place, and more than that, we saw this already in the beginning of Yesh Noichlan regarding the B'nai Slavchad, that the B'nai Slavchad were able to take their father's chelik. Slavchad was, we all know, he was a Bechar. So the same type of concept. Rather, he's coming and saying, I want to take over my father's place, and I should be able to be Yairish the chelik Bechar. Eli Kasha up to the third din that they sent from Eretz Yisrael. Eli Kasha HaKasha. A person, he testified, he was testimony in a shtar, and it was before he became a Goslin. So there's no question about it. The Eidus is kosher. However, Vinasa Goslin, later on he became a Goslin, so Goslin is Pasal Eidus. So the halach is, who ain't made Aksav Yadai? He can't testify regarding his own signatures. Why? Because he's not Neman. Because he's a Goslin. Other people could come and testify that this is a good signature. So Frektik Mara Hashta Iu Loy Mehemen Achrina Mehemni. How do you understand? He's not Mehemen. The other people should be Neman. And there's Bamas Maz. What's Shver? What Shver is what we're really chayshish is that maybe this person is a Goslin. Sorry, he is a Goslin. But maybe we're chayshish, since he's a Goslin, he's a Shakrin. And what he did was he wrote an Eidus falsely and put a predated date before he was known as a Goslin. That's the chashash that we have. So in such a case, why should a chayrim be believed? Maybe he predated it, and that's the scenario. Bezui shekasha bedine memaynis. Again, frekting more my kosher. No, maybe the scenario is dilma kegon shehuchzak ksav yadai bebezdin. What's going on in a chanami? We're not talking about a regular scenario where the signatures and Yechayshish per predate. Rather, we know that in Bezdin saw this Ksav Yaldoi before he became a Goslin, so there's no question that the signature on this check was before he became a Goslin. Therefore, it's Shver. How do we understand that Chayrim Mehemni? So what to Shver? That's we understand why a Chayrim are believed. However, he's not believed because he's now a Goslin. However, the signature at the time, he clearly was not a Goslin. So a Chayrim could come and testify that it's his signature, it's not a problem. Eli kasha up to the fourth din, a person who Eidus in a shtar, he testified, let's say, on his third cousin. He never thought in the world that he's going to be Yairish it. So he testified in this Yerusha. The halach is, hu eina yachol l'kaim ksav yadai. He can't be mekayim its ksav in a scenario where now he's the Yairish. Let's say all the other Krovim died. So now he can't come and be mekayim the ksav because he's negei b'davar. And the Bach is mazma. The Bach throws in the same type of kasha. We're chayshish that what? He's negei b'davar. So again, maybe the same type of thing we're worried about that what? That he's predating this document, he's forging it. By predating it, it's going to say, oh, it was before he was a Karev and it was really after, not a Karev, it was before, it was supposed to fall to him Yerusha, and really it was afterwards. And that the Gemara gives the same answer. Like we mentioned earlier, there's no question that it was not predated because it was ready in Bezdin. Therefore, we can understand that a person, other people are believed regarding testifying on these signatures. Eli kasha we're at the last one, the last din, which is the fifth halacha. A person gave testimony before he became a son-in-law to Reuven. So at the time, there's no problem. He's considered a regular stranger, but now he's a son-in-law. The halacha is hu eina meid al ksav yadai because he's negei b'davar, he's mishpacha aval acher meid. And again, frak demara hu loy mehemen achrini mehemni. How do you understand that? V'chi you're going to try to tell me the halachas that we just said earlier. We're talking about that it was ready in Bezdin. V'chi achinamik yigoyin shehuchzak ksav yad bebezdin. That doesn't help. V'amar Rav Yosef bar ben Yumi Amar Rav Nachman. The name of Rav Nachman clearly. Afal pisha loy huchzak ksav yad bebezdin. It doesn't work. Umay kosha again. The Gemara says maybe it's not true. You know why? Dilma gzeres amelechu dihu loy mehemen v'achrini mehemen. Maybe it's just a technical. It's not about the halachas. We all know that we're chayshish that he's a shakrin. Why? We all know Moshe and Aaron couldn't testify regarding their fatherless. The Chayis Mishum Delay Mehemnu. Chas v'shalom to say that we're Chayshesh Moshe and Aaron for Sheker. Ela Gzeras HaMelechu Shelo Yeidu Aleim. Hachanami, it's a Gzeras HaMelech. It's a technical point that we have a Gzera that a person cannot testify against his father, with pro his father-in-law. However, Acherim could come and say this is a good testimony. We're not Chayshesh, again, that he predated it for Sheker. Hachanami Gzeras HaMelechu Shelo Yeidu Aksav Yadu Lechasne. Elamai, we're back to square one. We went through all these 5 different halachas and we came out there's nothing shver b'dinim amaynis. Ela la'olam. So the Gemara says we're going to go back to the first case, not the first case in Kufna Chesam and Beis, rather the first case in Kufna Chesam and Aleph where we said it's a 3 generations. Ela la'olam kadam rino mikara v'dekashalach. We said what do you mean? The grandson is saying I'm not being geiris, my father. I'm being geiris. Who? I'm being yairish the Zayda directly. The pasuk says, "Tachas avisecha, you benecha." I'll tell you, what I'll tell you. I hope it bracha ksiv. It's just a bracha. The Taisa says it's a bracha. Shiyiskat tzadikim labanim kamaisai. It's just a bracha that you should have einaklach and children just like you. On that fact, the Gemara, umi matzis amar bracha ksiv. Can you really tell us that we're talking about a bracha? One kufnon tasamid base on the top of a lenyan dina loy. However, Vatani, we have our mission. This is the reason why we mentioned this whole entire Amid before was for this halacha, because we're quoting our Mishnah now. Nafal abayis Allah v'alavit. This is the case where a house fell on a son and a father, or Allah v'amirisha, and what happened was v'haisalak subas isho b'chayf. So now we have an argument. The Yarshav want to say that what the son died first, like that the father was Yersh the son, and therefore they're the Yarshav. Yarshav Omer Maben Meis Rishon, and then the father died v'achkach Meis Av. Ubachayv says no, Omer Av Meis Rishon. And therefore the son's Yerush and he's about Chayftas. And my love, don't we understand that Yarshav is who? Is the Banai? Is this mamish this case that it's an Einikel? And my Rishav is the Achai. So the argument is really between who? Between the grandsons and the uncles. And if you're going to tell me that the person can't tie on being Yerush, the grandfather directly, the chiksiv, what's the help that the son dies? He mesa ben, if the son dies, the achkach mesa my have. It doesn't change anything. Why? Nemelu, let the Bachai tell Bezdin, the Bachai can tell Bezdin Yerushas, Avu and Kashal Kilna. We're taking, what are we doing? We're taking it either way. We're knocking out this whole Tachas of Isecha, so it comes out what? That he's either way being Yairish, the father, it's going right through the son. So what's the chilik? My answer is no. Loi, Yarsha Av is Achid, Marisha Achid Davua. On that we're answering, you know what the case is talking about? That we're saying that the Yarsha Achiv is the Reuven's brothers. Reuven's saying, Reuven died first. So we are the brothers, and we are Yerush, who? Our father. And who is the case? Reuven's sons. So, and Reuven's sons are trying to say that what? The father died, the grandfather died first, not the father. And our father was Yerush to Zayd, and therefore we get a Chalukah. And Ein Chanami, it's very interesting that Rashbam says, Ein Chanami, it says, Vizui Shekasha B'dinim Amaynas, it's still Shver, but we paskin like it. Allah is Kamaisa, even though it's Shver. Zok Gemara Vayter, Boy Minei Rav Sheshes. Ben, what about a son? Mao Shiyirash es Imai Bekever Lahanchil La'achim Min Av. What is the halacha? Reuven, he died. Can he be Yerush's mother? And therefore he's going to give over the Yerusha to the brothers from the father. We have a braysa tinisua av shenishbe. You have a father got captured in the faraway country. Umeis benai b'medina. Now we don't know who died first, either the son or the father. Uben shenishbo. You have a son, or the other way around, the son that was captured. Umeis av b'medina. So the halach in such a case is Yarsha av and Yarsha ben split it. They're yachlaiku because we have no way of knowing. So fraktimar heichidam ilay mekidiktani. Mamish like a regular case where it's a father and son. And that's the case. I knew Yarshav Ben. Rashbam is masber. It's one bucket. Whether the father or son doesn't make a difference who really died first, because who's the Yarshim arguing? There's no real argument. They all want to be either the Yarsh Zayda or the father. What's the difference? Who died first? Elamai elav hachikamer. It's a av shenishbe. The father got captured in a faraway country, and he died. Umeis who? The ben bitoi b'medina. The daughter's son died, or the other way around, where the mother's father died. We don't know who died first. So the halach in such a case, Yarsha Avi, Yarsha Ben is echleik. Now, for Gemara, this is the raya to show us that a son is either Yerush or not Yerush his mother bekever. V'imi sinihinami the ben meis bereisha. Very nice, the son died first. Let him be Yerush his mother's father in the cave and give it to what? Lachua and have and give it to the brothers and father. No, from here we clearly see a raya. Ein haben Yerush his ima bekever lahan chilachim and have and staka raya. We have another brayso like this, a mishnah. Nafal abayis olav val imay. When a scenario falls in the mother, and if you're going to tell me these halachos, the ben is Yerush's mother mekever, nihin the ben meis bereisha, l'ersalim bekever l'yasinu lachim avua. Elashmami no, it's a bar raya. Ein ben Yerush is a ima bekever, a son. He's not Yerush his mother when he's not around, when he's in the kever, lahan chalachim and hav shmamina. So for the time of mine, what's taka pshat that a son is not Yerush his mother in the kever? And that we already saw earlier in Yesh Neichlet. We saw the psukim Ababai and Nemer Sima Beben, the two psukim in Bamidbar Lamed Zayin. One was pasuk Zayin, and then we had two psukim later in pasuk Tes, and we said one pasuk is for you regarding the ben and one's for the bow. The Nemer Siba Babal, Ma Siba, just like when you're Yerush Yerusha Umur Babal. That loch is ein abal Yerush Ishta Bekever Av Siba Umur Beben ein ben Yerush Sima Bekever to what? Lahanchel la'achim minav. So therefore, we have a psukim from Siba to tell us that his son is not Yerush, his mother bekever. Now we're going to finish up. We're going to finish this with this parak. It's a very long parak, but it's very interesting. We saw this, like Menachem saying, we saw this in Chavtes and Beis. Taisus even questions that why are we mentioning Zak Taisus? It's a tema shemevia gemara shtei pa'amim b'masechta achas, because it's literally almost word to word. It's a quote of what we saw in Chavtes and Beis, the Sukkah of the Beibar Sisin over there. However, if you look in Chavtes and Beis, it's exactly the opposite. We brought first Shchuna Gavoy, and then we asked the question from the Beibar Sisin. In our Gemara, we're going to do it the exact opposite. The Rishbam and Tais both say the reason why we mentioned it is a little interesting is because we spoke about Chazaka and who's holding on to it, so we're going to mention the case of Beibar Sisin. So let's see inside Yehuda Amalek Havre Nichse the Bar Sisin. I'm selling you all my nechasim that I bought from the Beibar Sisin. So there was one land, the Lekech comes and wants to take it. And Amalei, oh no, this land is not from the Bar Sisin. However, just Vikruyu the Mikri the Beibar Sisin. It just called the Beibar Sisin. So also come Rav Nachman. They went in front of Nachman and Nukma biyad the Lekech. So what he did was he gave it to the Lekech. And we're going to see why. Amalei Rav Nachman. Dina Hachi, is this really true? You're trying a way to take away this nechasim. You should have to prove it that it belonged to Beibar Sisin. Now, for the Rav, we're going to find us another steer to Rav. The Rav Nachman. This is Chavtes Beis, my boys by Beis. So what are you doing in my house? I bought it from Yuvach. And have a chazaka. I was living in the inner rooms. So also commander of Nachman. And Amalei, Rav Nachman tells the Lakeach, Zil, you have to go prove it. So again, it's a stira. Kasha the Rav, the Rav Nachman, right? Because the case, Bar Sisin, we just saw, the Rav Nachman wants to say, here we're saying Punk Verket, and Rav Hua then Punk Verket. But the Rav, the Nachman, the Nachman. That the more answers no. The Rav, like Kasha. Hacha in our case. Who's holding on to the nechasim? The meicher in the case of the Beibar Sisin. Hacha meicher koi benichse. Hasam in the case of Shchuna Kavoi. Lakeach koi benichse. Therefore, Rava says, I always hold a meitzim chaveiroi Allah of Araya. The Rav Nachman also is like Kasha. Hacha kibin the Amalei the Beibar Sisin. Let's be real, Zakr Nachman. It's called Beibar Sisin. It looks like Beibar Sisin. It probably is Beibar Sisin. Kivin Amalei the Beibar Sisin, Umikr the Beibar Sisin, Aladi Day Ramya the Galuya the Lav Bar Sisin, who, if it talks like a duck, quacks like a duck, looks like a duck, acts like a duck, and everything we say probably is a duck. Right? The Beibar Sisin, Hacha, Lo Ye'el the Nokib Shtar, it's no different than pulling out a star, and the Rabbeinu Geshem throws in a few words, the last line, V'nofikala error. It's no different than when you have a star, and the person is saying, he's putting an error in it, saying either it's Mezuya v'chulei, the halach is, Milay Amrina, don't we tell him, Kaim Shtarcha v'kum b'nechsei, go prove it, that it's a good star, and who did you gain the chasim? So to over here, by the person Shchuna Gavoy, he has to prove it, that there was no problems. Hadron alach, Misha Meis, Hadron alach. Okay, we are going to jump into the final parak of Masechtas Bava Basra. Get Pasha. So right away we all know that even though it's called get pashut, it's lav dafka gittin. We all know get, gimel tes, it's 12 lines, a typical get, 3 plus 9. However, it's all different shtaris. Dr. Shvam and Taisis. Kol shtar chayv is also kari get. So there's no real difference. However, we're going to discuss, in those days, today we don't really have that, they had such a thing called a get mekusher. Everyone did the Daf Yomi, they probably did it with a bunch of illustrations, with the papers, how we did it. We're going to go at a quicker pace, relying on the people that everyone, did it throughout the Daf Yomi, exactly the back and forth in the papers. So let's jump right into it. Get pashut. Now, interesting, Taisus throws in the reason why we even Bechlal have this whole parak, because we finished Parak Mishameis. The whole Parak Mishameis was talking about people that wrote shtaris when they're bari, shchimeras, and mela we jump and continue the theme of shtaris. And then Taisus says even Sanhedrin's going to continue with Tikkun Olam. It's all a hamshech. So let's see it inside. Get pashut. The difference between a pashut, lafuke, and makusher. We're going to see why we did a makusher for the kahanim. They got very insulted very quickly. So a typical get pashut is that you pull out a shtar, you write a bunch of documents. We have a tayrif and a typhus. The difference between a tayrif is where the rate is. Exactly who it is. It's Reuven divorced his wife, or Reuven borrowed money, and Muncie at this time, v'chule, that's the tayrif. That's where, even if you write a makusher, that's where you're going to fold the documents. However, the tayrif is a very universal contract language. It just says he divorced his wife and his wife is free, whatever it is. That's called a tayrif. There, you're clearly going to leave it pashut, even in a scenario of a get mekusher. And we're going to see exactly, it's a machlokes in the Gemara, where exactly by get mekusher we sign the documents. The Eidim are going to sign it. That's going to be the whole get pashut we're going to jump into. Get pashut Eidav misaycha. A regular get, you sign the Eidim on the bottom of the document like a typical shtar. However, mekusher, when it's mekusher, which means you fold it up, whether you do it with wax, a needle, v'chule, Eidav is machayrav. It's going to be in the back of the paper. Now, pashut shekasu, Eidav machayrav, and mekusher shekasu, Eidav misaycha, shneim psulim. Tanakama, shitas Tanakama is, if you play around with the takanas, we have very clear, we have mekusher and a pashut, you can't mix it two. And if you try to do any of the opposite, it becomes pasul. Reb Chanina with Gamliel Aymer, mekusher has an advantage. Why? If in a scenario of a mekusher shekasu Eidav misaycha, it's going to be kosher, because all you got to do is just rip up the mekusher and you're back to a pashut. Since it's regular mekusher kasu Eidav misaycha kosher, pnei sheyachol la'asaysei pashut, you could always turn it into a pashut. Reb Shimon begamliel Aymer hakol k'minhag Medina. We're going to see this in Kuf Samachay. We're going to go through this at length. Shitas Tanakama regarding hakol k'minhag Medina. Get pashut. Another halacha of the get pashut is Eidav b'shnayim. You only have two witnesses. Umekusher, at least the minimum is b'shloishi. You need for at least 3. You can even do more. We're going to see in the Gemara. However, the minimum is 3. Now pashut shekatsu by Eid echad. Umekusher shekatsu by shnei eidim shneim psulim. Again, the Gemara is going to question. It's a davar pashut. In a regular scenario where there's only one 8, it should be pasul. We're going to discuss this again, which was yesterday's Daf Yomi. So let's jump inside the Gemara. For the Gemara, Minan immediately. Where do we know Bechlal that there are 2 separate stars? So we're going to bring 3 makayers. 2 is going to be a nach. 1's going to be from the pasuk and the Torah. State in the pasuk. We saw this also at the beginning of Cheskes Abatim. Omer Chanina Damakra Sadois Bekesef Yiknu V'Chasov V'Sefer V'Chasim. This is talking about, we all know, within Bavel. When what happened was, we were in Golos, in Yerushalayim, the Rebbeinu Shalom tells Yirmiyah, go give over an Avias that don't worry, we're going to go, and they're going to conquer Yerushalayim, but we're going to come back one day. However, so we're going to see if it's Taiva or not. You should go buy Karka now, document it, even put it in a Kli Cheres, like that. When you come back, when we're going to even come back, you'll be able to prove ownership. We saw this extensively, Chavtasim Beis. So it says in the pasuk, Damakra Sadais Bakasef Yiknu, you should go buy fields, V'chasav V'Sefer, and you should seal it, V'chasim V'Eid Eidim. So Zok Gemara, Sadais Bakasef Yiknu V'chasav V'Sefer. Beginning of the pasuk, we're on Kuf Samacham Beis, is talking about Zeh Pasuk, like a regular Sefer Zok Dershba. V'chasim, when it sounds like it's sealed, Zeh Mekusher. It's what we have as a Shtar Mekusher. V'Eid, we all know, whenever it says Eid, it's the minimum is 2. V'Eid is Shnayim. What's Eidim? Shloisha. Okay, so how could you have? Elamai Shnayim, the 2 is for Lapashut, and Shloisha is for Lamakusha. Fracting more simple question. Veipachana. Mechatesi, the get Pashut is the one that has 2 Eidim, and the Makusha has 3, and that more answers it to Svara. Mitoich, Shenisrabe, Biksharav, we see that you matriach to make all these Ksharim, which you fold the document Nisrabe Beid. This is one Makar. From Sadis Bekesed Yikna, we're going to go into the second Makar, Rafram. Amar Mahacha says in the pasuk, Va'ekach es sefer makne es hachasum ve'amitzvah v'achukim ve'es hagoloi. So he's saying he's taking this document as a chasm which was sealed, which is going according to the rules and the regulations, ve'es hagoloi, the real document. So Zok the Gemara ve'ekach es sefer makne is talking about what? Zel pashat is a get pashat. Es hachasm when it seals a mekusher. Ve'es hagoloi zel pashat shebe mekusher. Ha mitzvah chukim, when he's saying all the rules and the laws and regulations, elu dvarim stechilchim b'm pasha l'mekusher. Ha ketzat zeh eidav we know is nine. V'zeh the mekusher is eidav shleisha. And zeh another halacha is eidav misaychay. And the mekusher is you sign the documents in the back. V'zeh eidav machir. Frek the mar same kasha ve'epach hana. Mar answers the same teretz mitoich shenisrabe b'chsharav nisrabe be'eidav. And the last makar that we're going to try to bring is from Rabbi Bar Yecheskel, who says in the pasuk in the Torah, says in the pasuk, Al pi shnayim edim, Al pi shloisha edim yakum davar. So frek the Gemara, frek Rav Rafram, frek Rabbi Yecheskel, and Tiskay medusim mishnayim. Why do he say lama parlecha b'shloisha? Elamai to tell us lama lecha shnayim the pashut shloisha l'mekusha. Again, frek the Gemara saying kasha ve'epach hana, same teretz mitoich shenisrabech b'chsharav nisrabe. Be'edav. So we have three Makairis, whether two from Yirmiyah, and the last pasuk from Al Pish Naim Edim, Al Pish Leish Edim. Frek the Gemara. V'hani lahachi da'asi. Is this really true? I have an answer for all of them. Kol chad v'chad. All three Makairis I can tell you for something else. The Milsud also. Lechad detani, like we learned in Chavtesim Abayz when it says by regarding Yirmiyah to go by the fields. It says Sadis b'chesed yiknu v'chatzim b'sever chatzim. It's only an Eitzer Toiva Kamash Malan. That's to knock out the first pasuk. The Ekach, the second pasuk, where it's talking about Yirmiyah bought from his cousin. Where Yirmiyah bought from his cousin. Shaila is if he bought it from his uncle, his cousin, but he bought the fields. Also, just Maisa Shaya. Frektu Mar. The Ekach is Sefer Mikna. How he bought it from his cousin. And the last Makar is Al Pish Naim Edim, Al Pish Leish Edim. Lahakish Leish L'Shnaim. But look there, Bekiva Rabbanim. We're going to see Masechtas Makas. There's a Machlaikis that over there 3 Edim can be Mazim, 2 V'chulei. So it has nothing to do with our sugya. Ella, then that Gemara answers you right. Mekusher is midrabanan. The Kroin, the Psukim is only a smachta ba'ama. So we're bringing a smach, you're right, it's not really a clear meferish in the Psukim. Now, frek the Gemara, v'tayim mai takina rabbanan mekusher. What is takab shat that we made it quite extensive, the mekusher? On that, the Gemara answers, you know why we did it? We did it for Asr the Kahani Havit. We did it for the Kahanim, the Havit Kapti Tuva. We all know the Kahanim are more makbid, they get more insulted, they take stuff a little more personal than usual. It does make sense because Kahanim, they're on a higher level, etc. The Rishonim explained this. They divorce their wives very quickly. It takes a quick, one supper gets burnt, they come running, they want to divorce their wives. So what did the Rabbanan do? You know what they did? They made a special takana to schlep out the get process. By time, Mekusha took a very long time. You had to go get the document, you had to fold it, you had to sew it, etc., etc. By time he was ready up to the last fold, by the time they even had to sign, he says, you know what, it doesn't make sense to divorce my wife. Therefore, they wrote the Mekusha. Frek the Gemara, Hatenach Gittin. So then we understand, for Gittin, Shtaris Michael Amema, like we started the parak, it's nothing to do with Gittin. Mara answers, Kedei, Shaloi, Techalek, Ben Gittin, Lishtaris, in order that a person shouldn't be Mechalik, and Taisus gives a couple Mahalchim, that if you're going to pass for regular Shtaris, you can also pass for Gittin, or we're worried that if you're not going to do it by other Shtaris, you're going to stop doing it by Gittin. So, Hechan Eidim Chaisman, where do the witnesses sign the Shtar by a Mekusher? By a get Pashid, we know where you sign it. You sign it on the bottom. So Rav Huna Amar ben Kesher la Kesher, between every single fold that you sign in the document, the Rashbam says the Hamin is you're signing it inside the shtar. Rav Yirmiyah Barama Amar, where do you do it? Achayre Haksav, you do it from the behind. When you fold it, the Cheneged Haksav Mi Bavachutz, exactly opposite the writing. So every fold is going to have a signature. Amalei Rami Bar Chamalei Rav Chizda, according to Rav Huna. Rav Huna the Amar ben Kesher la Kesher, according to Rav Huna that says, do you do it between every single fold? The Hamin is we do it inside. Called Sakadaitich ben Kesher la Kesher Megavoy. Frek the Gemara Vahu Mekusha the Achzilch and made the Rebbe. There was a Shtar Mekusha that came in front of Rebbe, and Rebbe did not understand at the time. We're going to see this later. Also, Rebbe was not familiar with Shtar Mekushers. He says, I'm a Rebbe. Ain't Zman Bezeh? Where's the Zman? What's going on? And Amalei Reb Shimon Rebbe, no, maybe it's in the Ksharim. Shama ben Ksharav Muvla. So Enechanami Rebbe, what he did was, he tore it up, the Chazan, he takas on this man. Now, Frektig Mara, if you tell me that Eidim was also in the Shtar Kusher, Vim Isa, then if it's taka true, that when you sign as also, why was he only kvetching about the time? He should have said, where's the witnesses? Elamai, the witnesses were on the outside. Amalei, mi savers ben kasher kasher gavoy loy ben kasher the kasher was enechanami mavroi. Frektig Mara of nechos domo zayif. Maybe we should be worried that he could forge whatever he wants. Now that you're telling me in a scenario that you write the stars, the Eidim sign it on top of the document, not on the bottom, why are you not worried? You can write whatever you want on the star. Since the Eidim were written on top. Mar answers, you know why? The Kosev Bey, you write at the end of the document, Shorer Rekayim. This is all that's left. He'll write another time, he'll write whatever he wants. And put another Shar V'Kayim. Mar answers, the Chad Shar V'Kayim Kasmina, you only do one. Trey Shar V'Kayim like Kasmina. Practic Mara, V'Leichus Dilma Machak Leila Shar V'Kayim Kasamai Deboy. V'Other Kasim Shar V'Kayim, let him erase it and then write whatever he wants, then write Shar V'Kayim. Amar Rabbi Yechanan. More than that, because we see from Rabbi Yechanan, the Mar says, Rabbi Yechanan, Tluya Mekuyemes. Mar answers as follows. You know why? Because Rabbi Yechanan says, Tluya, if it's Mekuyemes, which means if you forgot to put a word, so you put like a little arrow, you write whatever you had to do, and you put on the bottom of the star, and you say that you added it. However, this is the answer that Malchak, if you erase it, is possible, the Afa Pisha Mekuyim, even if it's a Mekuyim. So therefore, we're not worried that you're going to erase it. However, the Gemara fears always, only if there's enough space for the words B'Malkim Shar V'Kayim and a Chushir Shar V'Kayim. It has to be a place where you would write it, and it's Tashir. That is Shitas Ravuna. Frektim Mar Rav Yirmi that says you write it. Machar Ksaf B'Chutz. Rav Yirmi B'Ramo. Rav Yirmi Bar Abba Dal Machar Ksaf. The Keneged Ksaf B'Chutz. Leichosh Del Makasiv Nikavoy Maide Boy. Let him write whatever he wants in the inside the star. Umachsim Sadi Yiseirim Avray. You know, add in every fold. You have to add an 8. No problem. He'll add Eidim. The Omar, and it's Eidim is forged. The Omar, no, the rabbis Eidim Udavdi. You know why I did it? I want it to be more of a call. I added more Eidim. And more than that, the Taisus is masber right away. Whether it's a get Pashur or get Makush, you only have to be Makayim the minimum. So let's say if I get Makush, if there's 10 Eidim, all you have to be Makayim is the 3 original Eidim. And therefore he's able to forge it. Amalei. On that he answers, Mi Savris Eidim Kesidun Chasimi Eidim Mata Lamata Chasiv, which means to say is, I'm hoping everyone's showing the Daf Yomi exactly, more of a picture, but the point is, when they signed the documents, the whole kasha was based on understanding that the way they signed it is on a typical parallel to the text. So therefore you could add folds, and then just add another Eidim. However, then the Gemara answers, we're making a mistake. Rather, the way they signed the shtar is vertical. If it was a parallel text, you signed the Eidim vertical, so there's nothing more to add. Because if you're going to try to add another fold, you're going to see that it looks it was tampered with, and therefore it would be puzzle, ayin sham. If you look over there, you can see those pictures over there. Maybe we should be worried, you know what? That the bottom text has a very bad, something against him. Whether it was paid up a quicker time, something that he's not happy about, the Malvin. The guy is he goes, takes the scissors, cuts the last document, and we're understanding, we're going to see in a moment, we're understanding, if you look at those pictures, that only one of the Eidim had his signature on the last document, the rest were higher up. Again, we're saying the Eidim is vertical, not parallel. The guy is Reuven Badei, and he cuts the last line where it said the word Reuven. Umiskasher ben Yaakov 8. So it says Reuven, the son of Yaakov 8, and the halacha is the Tanan. Ben Ish Ploini 8 is kosher. So in Hanami, one of the signatures just says Ben Yaakov 8 and should be kosher. Mar answers no. Dechsev Reuven ben dechadara. The way you make sure the document's written on the last line of text, you write Reuven ben. Make sure it's on the same line. So therefore, if he cuts the star, what are you left with? You have to take a Reuven ben. You just left with the words Yaakov 8. For tomorrow. The Yaakov 8 do law. For tomorrow, the Dame Leichos Doma guys Reuven ben. In a Chanam is kasher, just the words be Yaakov 8. The Tananish Pliny 8 kasher, so it doesn't really help you back to square one because you're still Nemon with just having a signature that says Yaakov 8. Mar answers in such a case in a Chanami, you don't write the word 8, the Leichsiv 8. So all you're left with is Reuven ben Yaakov. So if you try to cut Reuven ben, what are you left with? Just the word Yaakov. The Gemara is still pushing. That's one teretz. The Kasav 8. In a Chanami it says 8. So you have just a word that says Reuven 8. The Adinan Bay that we know, the Chasimas Yada Lav the Yaakov, one Kuf Samach Aleph on the base, we know that there's no one that says Yaakov. There's Bam is a big Pella. He says that there's no one in the Ma'im Bazam Malchus Shum Adam that writes Yaakov like that. However, the Rishonim are very bothered by that. They say, how could Bezdin know that there's no Yaakov in the whole entire Velt? Rather, the Rishonim explain that he's nervous. A person, it's all about confidence. Every time a person does fraud, he's based on confidence. If he thinks he could get caught, it's enough of the deterrent. So too, he's afraid that Bezdin might do Drishas and Chakiris and find out that there's no such a thing as a person signs like that. So that fear alone is enough to deter him. That's what the Rishonim explain. It makes much more sense to go with that hesber. Again, Vidilma b'shmei davor chasam frektig mara, maybe Ein Chanam, he's writing Ruvain, and that's his minhag. He writes it for the honor of his father. My answer is no. A person doesn't do that. A person's not going to let go of his own signature and for covered use his father's signature. We find the Rab was Sayer. He would always have his signature like a shape of a fish. Was a kavar of Chanina, Tzayach Harusa, like palm trees, like the dates of palm trees, and the branches. Rav Chizda would write a Samach. Rav Aisha would write an Ayin. And Rabbi Ramuna Machusa would write it like a mast of a ship. My answer is like Chotziv. It's a chutzpah initial Shabi L'Shmei Davu Samana to make your father's name as a simon as a chutzpah. That's one text. Why are we getting so complicated? I have an easy way out. Hi kol mekusher she'ein edav chala mishita achas pasol. Zok mazuch, I have an easy way. In order for it to be kosher, it has to be that the edim and the signatures are on one page. Therefore, what? You're worried you're going to cut it? That's not going to help because it's going to be on different lines. So Amr Yitzchak Gar Yisem Amr Yechanan. It's a new halacha. Kol hamechakin kulon, all these stuff that are raised, sarch sheyichtoif, v'dain, there's a Scheiner bomb, if you go v'dain, you have to write a whole list, mamash kayumoin, what exactly you erased, you have to write the summary, however you have to put it in. Another halach is, v'tzarech sheyachzer minyan shel shtar b'shita achreina. And the Gemara is going to explain that the last text before the signatures, let's call that one line, if you look at those like pages that have lines in it, that one last line, you can't learn anything out from it. And we're going to see why. So what do? So you fill it up with just nothing new. You just write, you're being a little repetitive because there's nothing to learn out of it. My timer. We're on Kuf Samach Beis at Aleph. Omer of Amram lefi she'ein lemeidem meshita achroina. The halacha is, and there's Bamas Masber, because we're concerned that the way when a person, even today, when you sign a document, you're afraid to sign very close to the text. You always give yourself more space. And the reason is you're nervous that you're going to scribble into the following top line. So therefore you give yourself another line and then you sign your signature. So we're worried in such a case if you're going to learn from the Shita Achreina, if you're going to be able to learn from it, person's going to sign, then the Baal Shtar is going to come and write whatever he wants. Amalei of Nachler of Amram. Minalach, where do we know this? Amalei the Tanya. I'll show this in Meferish, you don't learn from the last line. The Herchik is the Eidim. It says as follows. If the Eidim had Shnei Shitin Min Aksav, if they left over 2 lines worth of the document, possible. However, Shita Achas Kosher. So Frekting Mar Maishna, this is part of the Raya that Rav Amram's telling Rav Nachman. Shnei Shitin Dilma Mezai V'Kosa. So Zok Rabbi, you have the same problem with one line. Shita Achas Nam Mezai V'Kosa, write whatever he wants. Elamai, Elalav, Shmami No, Ein Lamedim, you don't learn out from a Shita Achreina. Shmami no, therefore in Echanami it's only when you have it with 2 lines that it's possible. One Kuf Samach Beis Amid Beis. Iboiluhu. What happens if you left a little more than a line and a half? What's the shayla? You could technically squeeze and play and write a little smaller, throw in whatever you want to throw in. So Shita Mechsamai, Toshma, let's bring a raya. Herchik Saidim Shnei Shitin Puzzle. Oh, you can make a diak. Shita Mechsa is kosher. Nothing more right away says, hey, Maseifa. Shita Achas is kosher. Make a dig the other way around. Dafka Shita Achas u the kosher. Shita Mechsa if it's 1.5 pasal. No, we have this many times in Shas. They can't bring a right from any of them. Therefore, you're back to square one. So Fraktim Martaka, may have Allah. What is the halacha with 1.5 lines? Toshma, we're going to bring a raya, the Tanya that it's taka kosher. The Tanya Hirchik is Aidim Shnei Shitin Min Aksav Pasal. This is the right that it says what? Pachas Mikan. The Shmam says even 1.5 kosher. So therefore it's a raya that it works. Hayu Arba v'Chamisha Aidim Chasumim Al Ashtar V'nimtza echa mehem karav v'pasel. What happens? You have a shtar. There's multiple eidim. However, you give one look at the shtar and you recognize that some of these eidim are clearly kroivim. So it should be a pasel like a shtar, you'll tell me. The halacha is no. Tiskayim eidos b'shar. It's good enough as long as you find a few eidim that are kosher l'mahadrin. We're not geiris the bad eidim in the shtar. Why? Fact the Gemara. The etzem you should think. L'chayr you have eidim that are pasel in the shtar. The Gemara answers because if it would be left blank, the shtar. Let's say there's shnei shitin, it's klar pasel. That's what we learned on Amud Aleph. So what's the person want to do? He wants to solve, not to leave it blank. He asks a few of his brothers, please just fill out my document. And they sign it like eidim. We find this in Schach. Damar Chizkiya melu b'kroivim kosher. The Altisami, you're going to ask, how could it be if you fill it up, just filling up the shtar with kroivim is kosher? Sharei aver sukkah, we know if there's a regular sukkah, it's paisel b'shleisha. However, if you put schach pasel, the halacha is dalit. So you see the same type of concept over here. Sometimes leaving it blank is worse than pasel. Same type of thing by the shtar, leaving it blank again. It makes sense, misvara, because the reason why you're leaving it blank, we're worried that what? That you'll tamper the document. So fill it up with shtusim. Who cares? We're not going to be garrison. But we find that from schach the same type of concept that it's not enough. It's not going to pasel just because it's pasel. Paisel shleitza schach pasel is paisel barba. Ibailu shnei shitin sha'amru. We have this halacha. It has two documents. There's two lines. So let's just make it easier. If you look inside the Gemara, right, the words of hein vavirin is, let's say, 0.5 millimeter. However, if you look at the space until Bar Yitzchak, is another, let's say, 1/4 millimeter. So the shaila is, do we count the space in between the lines when we say that there's halachas of text or not? So hein vavirin, one kuf samach gimel lamed aleph. Hein vavirin, I tell my hein v'lo yavirin. Maybe you don't count the space in between the Shiur v'Shura. There's a little space, just like in your Gemara. Every line in the Gemara has a tiny bit of space. They're not touching. The ISIS are not touching. So Amar of Nachmer Yitzchak mistabra dehein va'aviran. It's mistabra to say when we say two lines, we count the regular full two lines, just like what we have in our Gemara. That it's each one we count the space in between. The Rabbi takes out, he doesn't have the ger, so shita achas v'le'avir. L'may chazia elo mai shma mino hein v'aviron shma mino. The hein of the kasha l'may chazia means you're able to see that it was tampered with because you don't have real space, so you're going to have to what? It's like even if a person today wants to write in his Gemara or something, and he doesn't have real space, he puts in little words and he plays with it. So in such a case, you're going to realize right away, the Rabbi says, Lefisha tzarich liktoiv oisius dakus yaiser mishar oisius, because you don't really have space. In such a case, it's considered mezuyif. Rab Shasi Amar Mishmei Dechizkiya Shnei Shitin Shamru. The two lines that we're saying, where we go, so you take out a document, there's ksav of a cipher who has very beautiful oisius, very beautiful, neat handwriting, nice and small, and then you have the witnesses v'chula that are much bigger. So when we say two lines, who are we focusing? We're focusing on the cipher, or we're focusing on the eidim. Shnei Shitin Shamru, do we say b'chsav yedei eidim? But like ksav yedei cipher, he wants to say that you know what we're going to focus on? The eidim's handwriting. My time up. The cholam ezayif, anybody that wants to forge a document, lav legabi safra ozum ezayif. He doesn't go and run to the cipher to do ziyif. The Rashbam says he's not going to risk his whole parnasa for one time tampering the document. It's not going to die for him. Therefore, he stays away from corruption. The only person who's going to tamper the documents is going to be the eidim. Therefore, we count the two lines. So you do have to say, it's a little interesting, that based on this Gemara, that if a person comes to you with a shtar, and there's beautiful handwriting of the cipher, that the whole document, and then suddenly you see big handwriting of, let's say, the Eidim or the Baal Shtar, who's not a cipher, as long as there's two kosher Eidim, we say it's kosher. Even though the handwriting is different, you have to say that the cipher wrote it, and then you decide at the last second to add it. Because otherwise, you would understand from the Gemara that you have a problem of saying that it's what? That it's mezuyif. Sounds like clearly from the Gemara that we're not going to say it's mezuyif even if the handwriting's different in such a case. So, v'kama. So how big is the shear? Amar Rav Yitzchak ben Elazar kegoin lecha ze al gabe ze. To be very clear, it's considered lecha, the lamed. So every time if a person even takes out a typical page and he writes the word lecha, the top of the lamed is going into the space between the next oisius. So there's a lamed which is touching the avir, and then the end of the lamed. Then there's a chaf. A chaf, the regal of the chaf, is also going into the avir. And if you write a lecha twice upon each other, so you have the lamed chaf, it comes out how many? It's 4 avirs, because the top of the lamed, the bottom of the chaf, and again, the top of the lamed, because we're learning it's directly underneath it. Therefore, it's 4 spaces. Alma Kasavar, Shnei Shitin. However, it's Arba'a Avirin. It's 4 Avirs. It's 4 spaces. That's that Shita. Chia Baramish Medula Amak Lamed Milamata, Vechaf Milamata. Alma Kasava Shnei Shitim Mishleish Avirin. The way he's learning is that it's not, the Lamed and the Chaf are not exactly on an angle. It's only if it's vertical Lamed Chaf, that's when you have 4 Avirin. However, if it's just a Lamed and a Chaf, and then you're doing the Lamed, which is touching parallel to the regal of the Chaf, you take out that Avir, therefore you're left with 3. Alma Kasava Shnei Shitim Mishleish Avirin. Ravo, no, just Baruch Ben Levi B'Shita Achas. So you have the Lamed and the Chaf, which is 2. The Lamed is 1 Avir, and the Chaf, the regal, is another Avir. Because of Shita Achas, Vishnei Avirin, it's considered 2 Avirs. Amarav, Loi Shanu Alabein Eidim L'Ksav. This whole halachas that we're saying that you're worried that there's dafka 2 lines, it's only between the Eidim and the Ksav. You can only have 2 lines, but 1 line is kosher. Aval Bein Eidim La'ashrasa. However, between the Ashrasa, we all know the Ashrasa is the hempik that's written. You have a stamp on the bottom of the documents. In such a case, afilu tuvanami kosher, even if it's more than a few lines. Frektumar Maishna, Bein Eidim L'Ksav, you what? Dilma Mizai because of you're worried that he's going to forge and tamper with the document. So say the same thing with Ashrasa, with the hempik. But Eidim L'Ashrasa Nami Mizai because of my the Bav Chasim Sadi. You know what the Gemara answers? That he spills ink, he fills it up with ink. Therefore, there's nothing to tamper with the document. If let's say you have a scenario where there's more than 2 lines, Nami mitayit also put on ink. Gemara answers, Amri, we're going to make a mistake. Saadi, the Eidim, you know what they might sign on? Atitiu the Chasimi. You know what they're signing? They're just signing that if you look at a document, a typical document, it's full of ink. You know what you'll say? There was something bad on the star, so he covered it up. So in that you'll say maybe the Eidim are just signing that there's nothing under the ink. But they're not geiris the star, they're just focusing on the ink. Fraktimara, Bein Eidim La'Ashrasa Namri, also say that Amri Beidina Ttiu the Chasimi. My answer is no, Beidina is much smarter than that. They're not just signing the ink, they're signing the whole entire star at Ttiu Le Chasimi. Fraktimara, again, V'leichash Doma, Guys Leila. Maybe what he's going to do is he's going to cut the whole top of the document. And he's going to erase this ink because of Madabayim Sadi. And part of the kasha is because it said Shtar habuhu ve'edal is kosher. So in such a case, why are we not worried in such a case that he's always going to do is erase the document? And Anichel of Khan, the Gemara's question says, Anichel of Khan, the Mashlum Mishmeid Shmuel, that he's learning this halachas Shmuel, then you don't ask on a Rav, because Rav is going to tell you it's tak apostle. Shaper. However, one comes on Gimel on Bezel, Rav Daf Yomi, the Mashlum Mishmeid the Rav, Michael Ameimar. According to Rav Daf Yomi, clearly says this. In the name of Rav, what are you going to say? My answer is Kasavar, in such a case, Kol Kiai Gavno. In such a case, we're not soymich on the star, on the hempik. Kol ki agavna imekayim oisim nashrasa shaboy, elo mina edim shaboy. Rather, you're soymich on the taki. You have to get the edim to re-testify on everything. In such a case, Rabbi Yehuda Amar, Rabbi Yehuda, another sheet is loy shanu bein edim l'ksav, avol bein edim la'ashrasa. Afilu shita achas is possible. And Taisus right away says. The third line, the Savar of Yechanan imitayit le'pasul mishum the Beidina tityu chasmi. Taisus says that Rabbi Yechanan holds that Taka Bezdin makes a mistake, and they sign only on they'll sign only on the ink. So in such a case, the Matayit Rashban says very clearly, even in a scenario where they signed in the ink, Leishana v'lashita achas pasul. So fraktim ma'mayshna be'edim la'shrasa. Dilma, you're going to tell me that what? Guy is lila. He's going to cut the top of the document. The cuts of hu ve'edah. B'shita achas. He's going to write whatever he wants and have witnesses sign, add his own witnesses that are false in that same line. The kasavar. Shtar habo hu ve'edah b'shita achas. So it says, Reuven borrow for me $100, and you have on the exact same line 2 fake signatures. And he's going to, again, we went through this, we said that you only have to be Mekayim 2 out of the Eidim. So the bottom 2 Eidim, that's where we understand the Amino, is the ones that he's going to be Mekayim. The Kasavar Shtar Bo Hu Eidim Shitach is kosher. So again, Frank Demar Yachim, Eidim L'Chsav Nami Dilma Guys L'Loi. He's going to cut the top because of my Deboy V'Chazim Asadi. The Mar answers, Kasavar Shtar Bo Hu B'Shita Achas Ve'edim B'Shita Acheres Pasul. Which means to say is, if you have a document that says Reuven borrowed $100 and the sheet does the Eidim are on the bottom, in such a case it's possible. So fraktamara v'leichash no makazu ve'edim b'shita achas v'ama another rabbis ve'edim of the avdi. Like we're saying, it says one line and there's multiple edim, and he's only going to be mekayim the bottom edim. My answer is kasavar kolki agavna im mekayim and oisam and edim shalamato and edim shalamalo. You know, we're going to have to testify the edim on that same line, which is the only issue that we're chayshish that you're mezayif, because the bottom edim, again, we're not worried that it was a ziyuf. Gufa. Amarav, Shtar Haba, Hu Ve'edel HaMachak is kosher. You have a scenario where the whole entire shtar, the whole entire document is already erased. However, it's not a problem as long as it's rewritten, it's kosher. One kuf samach dalet and alf. Ve'im taimar, and if you're going to ask, Meichik, Chayzer Meichik, maybe you should be chayshish, again, that he's going to erase whatever he wants, and it's going to come out that it's a tampered document. Mara says, which means to say is, you can't, if a person looks at a document and he sees that the text of the document was only erased twice, and the edim were erased once, you'll see it's a tampered document. So we have to say this outside this exact same case to really understand the patent that he's doing. What's he going to really be doing? He's going to be doing multiple steps. He goes over to Adam and he fills out ink, he erases it, Adam come and sign on the document. Now, in such a case, you have a document that was really erased only on the bottom once. And then he goes and he erases the whole entire document, fills it out, has Adam erase it. In such a case, then he erases the whole entire document again. So it's a chap. So what happens is, it comes out that the top of the document was erased really once. The bottom of the document as Adam was, how many times was erased? Twice. So now, when he has such a document and he erases the top and replaces with whatever you want, what are you left with? You're left with a document that both Bein the Adam, Bein the Ksav were erased twice. This guy's the London. He chapped the loophole by playing shtick, having the Chasim as Adam before the document was erased twice. The Adams was already erased twice. In such a case, you're walking away with a shtar that both of them have equal ground, that they were both erased twice. Mar answers, no, Amar Abai, in such a case, Kasav Rav, Eina Adam Chaytzman Al-Machat. What's your whole patent is that you're going to fake it. You're going to erase it and then have Adam sign in such a case like that it's erased twice. They're not going to do such a case. If they see that it's Meshuneh from the top, they're going to see that the first one was already erased only once. The bottom was erased twice. They're smarter than that. They're going to chap that he's trying to play with them and they're not going to sign it. If he is on a regular text that was never erased, the Edav and the signatures of Alamachak was in a place where it's erased. Kasha. Why? It's not making sense. He could erase the top because it comes out that the text of the document and the signatures of the document were both erased once. The Mar answers, you know why? The Kasvi Hachi. This was what they say. Anachna Sahadi, we as witnesses, Chasamna Machka, we signed where it was already erased once. However, the shtar was Kasvel and Ayara. So therefore, if a person, since it clearly out of this clause, there's no way to erase the top. Fraktamar, where are they signing? Where are they writing this clause? The Kasvi Hechel. If you're going to put it under their signatures, the guy's just always going to do is take a scissors and cut that clause out and then erase the top of the document. Guysley. Elo, you're going to tell me he's going to put it on the top of his signatures? He's malchikle. He's just going to erase it. And you're back to square one, then you're left with the whole document that's erased. So where are you going to do it? The more answer is the kasri ben sada l'sada. You have Ruvain ben Yaakov, then you put your clause, and then you put the second eight. So Mamanashach, if you try to erase the document, you're going to see that there's a massive space in between. The Edim, Elamai, you're going to chap, there's a clause and it's pasha that you can't cut it. Because if you cut it, you're cutting off 1/8. Frekting Mari, Hachim, a Sefer, we have the Sefer that says as follows. Hu alamachak. What happens if the text of the document is unerased? The Eidov, however, the witness is signed on a regular shtar that was never erased. The Eidov halanayar pasal. Frekting why is it pasal? My pasal say the same chap. Hachinami nichtavu. They should also write Hachi anachno sahadi. We signed chasamna al nayara. Vishtar. We signed the regular document. Vishtara. The shtar was alamachaka. So what are you going to tell me? Hashtam nami my amers meichik chayzim meichik. You told me earlier. That's what we started the daf with. Ha amers and so what are you worried about? Why is it possible? Mara answers hani mili heicha de chasima sahadi amachka. It's only where the Adam sign on something that was erased. However, heicha de loy chasimi sahadi amachka. In a scenario where the witnesses did not sign it on a machak, on a place where it was erased, ala nayara lo yadia. They're not going to be able to understand and chap the difference. In fact, tomorrow, I don't understand. Just take another Megillah and do a parallel and look in between the two documents. You'll be able to tell. And erase it. Like that, you can compare it. My answer is you can't compare it. Every document, even a Sefer Torah, there's multiple types of Sefer Torah. Some, if you look at certain Sefer Torahs, they're very heavy. The cloth is very thick. Certain Sefer Torah is very thin cloth. So the point is that you can't compare two shtaras if it's not the same shtar, because again, it's very possible it's a whole different av. One's thicker, one's not, so you can't compare the two. No problem. Let's testify and be Mekayim these Eidim. Then erase the signatures, because we already was Mekayim the Eidim. Then you can compare the two. On that, Rav Ashi says, Amar Rav Ashi, you can't erase it already. It's too late. Once already dried up, it's already too late, so you can't compare the old erase. So wait, do what we just said, this patent, and wait a day or two. Like that, you'll see that it was eventually, once it ages, it ages. Amar V'yirmiyah, Chayshina lebezdin toyin. We're worried, one of the Mahalchim and the Rishbam we're worried that what? La yuchel ledaktik, but we're learning that what? We're worried that Bezdin is not going to wait. They don't know this halacha to wait. And therefore, they're going to either kasher up the shtar or passel up the shtar, shaloi kalach. And therefore, we're chaysh Bezdin time. Okay, we're going to continue back in the Mishnah. Rav Chanina Magamliel Aimer, Mekusher has a kula. Because every Mekusher, you could turn it into a pasha. So hey Shiv Rabbi, the Devrei Reb Chanina ben Gamliel. You tell me that every Bekusher is like a pasha. Frakted Mara, frakted and Kum Samach Dal on the base. V'aloi ein doime zmanu silzeh lizmanu shilzeh. A get Mekusher and a get pasha had something very fascinating. That the halacha was, for example, in today's day and age, you would write it the 4th year of President Biden, whatever. Let's just make it dates. In those days, they counted the bus of the melech. But if it was a get pasha, you would write December 8th, 2024. However, it was a mekusher, for more chashivas for the president, you would write December 8th, 2025. So right away, how in the world are you going to tell me that a mekusher has a mile of a pasha? You'll have a big problem, because saying the outside will go right through the inside. You have a massive problem. Is that what happens is, a person writes a shtar. It's not so much about get. Where the problem is a shtar chayv. A person says, I borrowed money from you on December 8th, 2024. And it's a mekusher, and he writes really 2025 because it's a mekusher. Now, he comes back a few months later, he pays him back. And he says, can I please have the mekusher back? He says, I lost it, but I'll write you a receipt. So he writes in the receipt, and he says, May 1st, 2025, you return the money. A year later, what's he do? This person, he takes out the mekusher that he was hiding the whole time. He turns it into a pashat, and he has a document that clearly states that what? December 8th, 2025, he borrowed money. So he comes over and he says, can I have my money? He says, I pay you back in May. He says, I don't even talk about it. The receipt says May 2025. This was borrowed December 8th, 2025. So why are we not worried for such a problem? This is the massive kasha. Because pashut, the way the word melech shana, you counted the year it was ma'anim le'shana shtayim ma'anim le'shtayim. However, by mekusher melech shana ma'anim le'shtayim, you give him another year shtayim ma'anim le'gimel. V'zimnin, why are we not worried? The yazim ne'zuzim in mekusher u'misraim le'zuzim in he's going to pay him back a parlay. And he's going to say, I lost it. I lost it. He writes a receipt, but the receipt says what? May 1st, 2025. Now comes December 8th of 2025. Mashrulei Pasha, he pulls out the shtar that really was a mekusher, he tells him it's a Pasha. Now you borrowed. More answers, Kasavar, ain't Kaisman Shiver. You're right. We're going in a makom where there was no Shiver. In a place where there's a Shiver, you can't take a right in time this reason. Now, if there's no receipt, the person says, I would love to pay you back till you find me in the mekusher. I'm not giving you back your money, therefore there's no problem. Fact the Gemara. Me Baki Rabbi was me Baki Rabbi Mekusher was Rabbi really Baki and Mekusher Vahu Mekusher Dasik made a Rabbi V'Amar Rabbi Shtar Mochazeh. Rabbi didn't understand that the Mekushta they wrote the year later, so he says it's a post-dated, it's Aser. The Amalei Zainin was his name. He tells Rabbi, Kach Menaga Shalumazu, Melech Shana Mayin Leishtain. Mamish, like we just said, Shtain Mayin Leishalish. So again, how could you say that Rabbi, this is the kasha? It sounds like over here that Rabbi was not clear in this. My answer is yes, you're right. Basra the Shama is Zainin Svara. Rabbi's answer Chanim Gamliel now that Zainin told him what's happening. He asked such a question. Ahu Shtara, there was a Shtar Dav Kasabe Bishnas Pliny Archon. We're understanding now. Archon means the first year. Amir of Chanini, Badik, we go check what year was the first year of his presidency. Amasei Amad Archon Bar Chanusei. Fraktamar of Dilma, just Arach means Malchusei, means length. If anything, Arach is a lashon long. Mechatesi means the first. Amir Vaishe Kach Menaga Shalumazu. Shana Rishaina currently Archon. They called it Archon. Shnia currently Digon. Digon's lashon 2. Fraktamara Vidilma Vuru Vada Kamu. Right? We have this right now with President Trump that Itaka got out, and now he's coming back. So it's very possible you're calling it what? You're calling the Archon can mean 2016 or can mean 2024. 2025 really, right? So how do you know? Amar of Chanina, Amar of Yirmiyah. No, you know what you'd call this president in such a case? Ahu, we all know, everyone's saying that Trump is called the Archon Digon currently. You put in Archon and Digon, you put in both. You call it Archon Digon the second term of his first year of the second term. Tana Rabbanim, you're going to find such a concept that Digon means 2. If a person says Hareini Nazir, now every time you makabel, it's a 30 days. Hareini Nazir, Hina Sumchas Hamar, Hina, and if a person says Hina, means Achat. So he all he has to do is take a 30 day of a Nazir. Digon, use the Lashon Digon, Shtaim, it's 60 days, a Chulei. Tarigon, it's Lashon Try, it's interesting, Gimel. Tetrigon is Arba. Pentagon, like a pentagon, even like a staff, it's called a pentagon, is Chamish, it's 5. Tano, Rabbanon. Yeah, they have it a little different, the way they made 5, but we always understand that 5 is a little different than that. Tanu Rabbanon. Bais, equal, we find this also by Mitzayra, a rounded house, Digoin, or a double, Tarigan, a 3-corner house, and Pentingan, or 5. Ain't a Matamin Goin. However, only a 4-corner house is Matami. Tatrigan Matamin Goin. Not immediately, how we know such a lachal Mitzayra, the Tanu Rabbanon. It's coming from Psukim, Lamalai Makir, Kira Shtayim, Lamata Makir, Kira Shtayim, Kisar Shavas. We learn that means we count every Kir, Arei Akan, Arab. Ahu Makosha, the Asik made the Rabbi. V'ama Rabbi ain't zman b'zeh. Like we saw earlier, the Rabbi says no zman, he opened it up. Amar Shimon ben Rabbi l'Rabbi. Shama Benkshar Movle Taka Falye v'Chazit. So we said over the story, he tore open this document and he taka saw it. So Hader Chazabei Rabbi Bebishus. Rabbi looked at him. He looked at Reb Shimon with a little, he's displeased to shtickle. Amalei, he says, what do you want from me? It wasn't me. Lavana Kasafti. I didn't write it. You know who wrote it? Rav Yehuda. Chayta Kas Rav Yehuda, the one who shows, he's the one who wrote it. Don't man me. Says, so Amalei, Chlach Lashon Hara says, stop saying this Lashon Hara. He should have just easily said, it wasn't me. Why are you saying who it was? You see, I'm not happy. Zimnin, gets even better, the story. Havi Yosef Kameh, V'kapasik Siddur B'Sefer Tehillah. And he's finishing one of the chalakim of, the Sefer Tehillim is 5 chalakim. He's finishing one of the chalakim. Amar Rabbi. Rabbi says, Kamer miyusher ksav zeh. Amar le'lava no kasavte. Oh, I wasn't the one who wrote it. Chayata was the one who wrote it. Chayata Kasvi. He's the one who wrote this beautiful Tehillim. Amar lechlach lashon hara. He also says, stop saying this lashon hara. So Frektimar, very simple. Bishul Mahasam, the first case where you saw he wasn't happy with the Shtamar Kusher, that the Ksharim was too deep. That's what it sounds like from the Rishbam. We can understand this Lashon Hara, Ika Lashon Hara. Lahacha my Lashon Hara, what's the problem? You gave a compliment, he didn't want to take the praises, it's not me, it was him. My Lashon Hara, Ika. My answer is Mushim Rav Dimi, the Tani Rav Dima, Achmed Rav Safar, La'oilab, it's one of these most famous Gemaras. Al Yisaper, Adam, B'Teivasu, Shechaver. I think we say more in a public setting. If a person gets up and he starts saying how chashuv this person, there's always people in the room who can't forgive, and they throw a not smart comment, and it causes lashon hara. Shemitayich tavasa iba lidei ras. Amar Rav Amram, we're going to finish the Amar with some agazata. Amar Rav shalosh aveiros ein adam nitzal mehem b'chol yoin. The 3 aveiros, it's very hard for us. Hirer haveira. One of them is Hira Aveira, V'in Tefillah, the Rishbam, interesting, it brings a mahalach that means a person's very confident, steals some iskabel. Taisus doesn't understand. Taisus says that every day it's very hard for a person to 100% focus on tefillah. It's one of our stuff we always constantly have to work on. The Lashon Hara. Fact the right away. Lashon Hara sakadaitach mamish. All these lavim. If you go through the Chafetz Chaim, it doesn't make sense. Ela avak Lashon Hara on Kuf Samechayim at Aleph. Rather avak Lashon Hara on the Rishbam says kigoin da Amri nura beplanya. There's a way either you could say this guy's house, his candle's always lit. So it really depends. You can use a l'shvach. The guy's a Talmid Chacham. Chaim Kanievsky never turns off his lights. Or you could say in a lashon, if you understand from the movements, etc., you could really mean that he's constantly partying. Ela avak lashon hara. Review them Rav. Again, it's avak because it's really depending how he says it. Rav. Roiv is begazel umiyat v'arayis v'akol lashon hara. And again, lashon hara sakataitach. Ela avak lashon hara. Even gazel. It's very fascinating. The Rishbam says we're not chayshish a yid is going to come and shoplift. You don't find the yid taken away from a store. But when it comes to returns and it comes to stuff that we're Meir very quickly that it's not black and white gzela. Okay, Zok the Mishnah, Reb Shimon Gamliel Aimer, Hakol Kamina Gamadina, Frektamar. I don't understand. What Shita's Tanakama? Reb Shimon Tanakama, Leslie Mina Gamadina, he's not going to hold it the Shita, why not? Omer Ashi as follows. The Asra Dinahigi Pashut. If it's a place, Muncie, the only right to get Pashut, let's say. The Amalai, he tells the Shliach whether it's for a get. Avali Pashut, go write me a get Pashut. Va'azal Avalei Mekusher. And then he ran and wrote him a kusher. Kpeida, there's no machlaikas from Shim Gamliel in Tanakama if it's not a good get. I didn't ask you to do this. Nehigi, or the other way around. Nehigi Mekusher. Let's say it's Lakewood where they do a get Mekusher. Va'amalei Avalei Mekusher. And Takad, he tells the Shliach, go write him a kusher. Va'azal Avalei Pashut. Again, Kpeida, there's no shayla. So where's the machlaikas? Tanakama and Rav Shimon Gamliel ki pligi ba'asher denehigi b'pashim mekusher. Let's say we said yesterday when we were doing the daf. Let's say per se they do any. There's no real akbada. It's a pashim mekusher. The amalei and he goes and explicitly tells him, I want you to write me a pashim avali pashim. The azal avalei b'mekusher. And then he went and wrote him a kusher. So mar savar shitas Tanakama is kpeda. A person's makbid. I asked you to do me a pashim. You should have done a pashim. Umar Savar, Shimon Gamliel says, Marim Makumuloi. So we said yesterday, very fascinating. The Rishbam says, the Rishbam's lashon was that what's the Maila by Mekusher is Mekusher Tfei Nichale. So we learned from the Rishbam that when I asked you to do a Pashut and you went and did a Mekusher, Adarab, more happier. Sounds like that if I asked you to do a Mekusher, if either it's Rishbam, and you went and did a Pashut, then the halacha is even Kulam Amaydu that it's not a good get. Okay, so in such a case, it's a Maramakum Uloi. So what is Maramakum Uloi? This is what we're going to be discussing right now. Maramakum means, I'm giving you a piece of advice. I'm asking you, do you mind going to Lakewood to pick up my package? My son, you went even further away. So I'm not telling you Dafka Lakewood. I'm asking you, but if you do even more, Lashon Shbam, it's Tava Bracha. I'm happy that you even went more out of your way. So Zok the Gemara. Amar Abaya, Reb Shimon Gamliel, Reb Shimon Relazar, Kula Srilu, this concept. What? All I'm asking you is just, I'm giving you eight satayv, that's all I'm going to ask of you. I'm not going to push you for more. Reb Shimon Gamliel, we just saw Hadamar, which is our Mishnah. In a case where they write a pashut Mekush, and I asked you to do a pashut, and you went extra. We're not going to handle financials, money. We're not bringing money into the picture. And you went and did a Mekusher. Shita Reb Shimon Gamliel, he holds it just a Mar Makom, and he's not makbid. Reb Shimon, where do we find the Reb Shimon? The Tnan, in the scenario in Kedusha. Now, there was an Isha, let's say, in Lakewood, and a person in Lakewood told, if you marry me, I'm going to give you a silver bar. So she goes over to Reuben and says, could you please go to Lakewood as my shliach and go pick up from Shimon, who told me he's going to marry me for a silver bar. Then Lamaisa shliach goes to Lakewood and he gets a gold bar. So the shaila is she mekudeshes or not? So the Gemara says, machlokes, one want to say avad that she's mekudeshes. All she's saying, even something like a silver bar, I'm willing to marry him. Kol shegen gold, it's worth much more. Some say it's dafko. So this is Shita Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon says, Reb Shimon, if gold's worth much more, raise him a Kodeshes, and it would just a Mar Malkim say even silver. That's Reb Shimon. Rabbi Lazar did not. Also a case. Ha'isha Shamar Skabali Giti Makim Pliny, the Kibbutz law Mimakim Acher Puzzle. Now, a person says, go to Lakewood, pick up my get. And the Maisos, you have to go much further. You have to go all the way to Baltimore. So the shaila is it puzzle or not? So once Tanakam holds puzzle, and Rishbam says fasting, says why? He says maybe in that place it's going to be more bushas. People know me over there. It's going to come out noise over there. It's more bushas. I dafka wanted you to go to Lakewood. I didn't want you to go to Baltimore where I live, etc. Therefore, it's puzzle. Rabbi Lazar says machshir. It's again, I'm asking you as a taiva, could you go to Lakewood? And he calls me back and says, I even went much more out of him away. Adarabba, Tavala bracha, they even went more for me. Mar Sava Kpeida, Umar Sava, Mar Makamulai. So again, we have three Shitas, we find this throughout Shas, a machlekes of Mar Makim Ulayana. Now, Zok Nemara, Pasha Shekasav Boy 8 Echad. Now, it says it's possible. Umakosha Shekasav by Shnaim is possible. Correct Gemara. Bishlam Umakosha, we understand Shekasav by Shnei Eidim, we can understand possible because it's Drich. Salka Daita Chamina. I would have understood Hoyel Ba'alma Ba'etzim is kosher, Chanami kosher. Usually 2 Eidim is good enough, that's what's kosher, Kamashal, and what? That it's possible. Ela Pasha Shekasav by 8 Echad. Pshita that it's possible. Why would I think if you have a star that only has 1 Eid, it should be kosher? So Amar Abaye gives one teretz like Nitzrucha. Dafilu Eid Echad B'chsav Eid Echad B'peh. It's possible in such a case. Hainu. This is the Mishnah. You have a get pashut, one, or let's say a shtar chayv pashut, and one was written B'chsav and one was written B'peh. Dr. Ishbam. He says that the Shitas the Abaye says in such a case it's possible for what? That you don't say that there's a cult. Dafka 2 Eidim when it's signed in a shtar, there's a cult to take away from the kuchais. And more than that, in such a case where there's only one Baal Peh and one Bechsav, the Loiva can say Parati, and I didn't mind the shtar back because I knew you didn't write it Shalek a din. That's how the Rishbam puts it down. So in such a case, it's possible. A Neymar, however, argues. A Neymar was Achsher Beit Echad Bechsav Beit Echad Baal Peh. A Neymar holds in such a case, the halach is that it is kosher. More than that, Rishbam says even a massive chiddush. Afilu litros milakuchais. To even take away from the chasim shabadim, you have to understand that he held that it's taka enough to be mitzi a cult. That's the only reason why you're taking away from the shabadim is when there's enough of a cult. So for tomorrow, I'm going to have Ashila Meir. Rashi has a Meir. What is the halach with Shitas Abaye? What do you mean? Abaye says it's possible. I don't know what you want from me. I don't hold like Abaye. What are you going to do with our Mishnah? How is a Meimar who's learning that it's taka kosher? That what in the world is taka our Mishnah? What is the case that Eid Echad is possible? The Gemara answers, HaKamash Malon, in a scenario of the Shnayim b'Mekushers Kei B'Echad Pashut. You know why the Mishnah tells us that it's possible Eid Echad Pashut to tell us? Ma Hasim, just like you understand by a what? A get Pashut that only has 1 Eid. It's possible with the Raisa, it's not considered 2 Eidim. Psul da Raisa, have Hachanami Psul da Raisa, that a get Mekusher, and the Rishbam says Avada, there's no such a thing as a get Mekusher, possible with the Raisa, because the whole get Mekusher is Darbana. Rather, Tilu Olav Chachamim, so stark that it's mamish considered even possible in the Raisa. Let's say it's a get, it's not considered a get. Then get ain't megureshes, and if it's a star, you can't take away from the chasim v'shubad. Now Teida. Now we're going to say something very fascinating. We're going to bring Rav Yirmiyah back. It's a very geshmaka finale for the Masechta. We learned at the beginning of Yachvar on Chav Gimel and Beis, where we discussed a bird. That the halacha was that a bird goes up to chamishim amos. More than chamishim amos, it doesn't fly. So we said if a person finds a shayvich, if it's within 50 amos, the halacha is it belongs to the Baal shayvich. So Rabbi Yirmi asked a question. He says, what is the halacha if the bird has 1 leg outside the 50 amos? And what's the Gemara over there say? Valda of Kumis Medrash. And Taisus Masber, we said Taisus even in this year. We were Masber Taisus. Taisus asked, what's taka wrong with his question? And Taisus Chav Gimel and Beis says that Rabbi Yirmiyah should understood that Midas Chachamim is exactly Meduyak, and there's no such a thing as a bird, even 1 leg, go out of the 50 amos. He wasn't respecting, you have to understand really what that means, but he wasn't respecting Midas Chachamim. That's what we said, the Taisus said in Daf Yomi. We even said it on the Sunday shir. That's what Rabbi Yirmiyah said, and they taka threw him out. But today we're going to bring multiple versions of. So this is what happened. What happened was he taka someone and learned like this. Rabbi Yirmiyah ended up going to Bavel. He got kicked out of the Beis Medrash in Eretz Yisrael, so he went to learn in Bavel. And now, so they sent him letters. They asked him Shilas in Bavel, what is the halachas? And he answered back with Lashon Kavod. He says, "Ba'etzem I'm not going to ask me, but even now that he asked me, I'll answer like a Talmud." And with the respect that he gave them, they invited him back there to Yisrael. And that's how the fairy tale ended. So let's see it inside. There's multiple versions how the Shilas to Rav Yirmiyah. And with that, we're going to finish today's shir. So let's see it inside. Teida. And the reason why we're bringing this is because Shitas HaMeimar. Meimar is going to prove it to us that Rav Yirmiyah has the same type of concept of what? Shitas HaMeimar is what? That if you have a star with 1 aid, Baal Peh, and 1 Eid B'chsav, it's kosher. So Teida, he says, and I'm going to show you a raya, that we have such a machlokes, the Sholchu Mitam Chavrai Yirmiyah, they sent to Rav Yirmiyah a Shaila. Eid Echad B'chsav, Eid Echad Baal Peh, Mal Shit Starfu, Mamish, the shita what we're learning with Ameimar. And they explain the shayla as follows. Aliba the Tanakama, the Rabbi Shua ben Karcha loy tibalach. So we have to give a little more context to what's going on in Rabbi Shua ben Karcha and Shitas Tanakama. So really we're going to see this in Yad Hashem and Sanhedrin Daf Lamet, where there's machlokes if a person comes to Bezdin. Reuven comes to Bezdin, he says, I saw Shimon borrow $100 on Sunday. Then the following comes, whether it's the same day, he says, I saw it on Monday that he borrowed the money. So if you look at the whole entire picture, there's no two Eidim saying a complete story. However, if you palkin into Eidus, we have two Eidim saying what? That Reuven borrowed $100. So it's machlokes Tanakama Shur Mekarcha. Shur Mekarcha says you mitzaref to Eidus. So the Gemara explains. That even two bechsav and two al peh is not mitzaref. So we went through yesterday in Daf Yomi, we explained what's the comparison to the case of Eidim where one says on Sunday, one says on Monday. Here also, l'chayra, in our case of Al-Peh, the way we understand the Kipshut and Muskarishin is they're both agreeing that he lent the money, just one couldn't, he had a broken arm, etc. So Taisus is Mazba Riches. However, there's one fascinating Mahalch in Taisus is that when a person signs on a document, he's not signing that he saw the halva. A person comes over, he says, I'm going to Lakewood to borrow $1,000. Can you please sign the document like that? I could give it to the Malva. So the person who's signing b'chsav is just signing his nachas to give over that the document is going to be accurate and true. However, the avoy is not. So it comes that the eid b'chsav and the eid balpeh are not testifying about the exact same thing, because the eid balpeh is the guy in Lakewood who saw the avoy. The eid b'chsav is the guy just testifying about the documents. So therefore, Zaktaisis, you can compare the two, mamash like our Mishnah of eid b'chsav, eid balpeh to the case of Eidus, where one's saying Sunday, one's saying Monday. It's separate. Eidus, if you can be mitzvah for them or not. So Zaktimar, according to the Kama Loitibah, I'll leave it there with Shom and Kocha. Shnai b'chsav v'shnai malpeh. You understand who the mitzvah. Avalei da'achod b'chsav v'da'achod alpeh. Lo mitzvahfin on a demolishna. Maybe you don't. Maybe you could be mitzvah. On that he answers, Shalach lehu. Rabbi Yirmiyah says, Ani kadai sheshalachtem li. I'm not right. You should ask me such questions. Alakach das talmidchem. He's talking about himself. No, I hold you starfu. So again, why is the Mema bringing this up? He's showing us that there are shitas that hold like him. They ate echo b'chsav, ate echo b'peh is kosher. And then he tells our Mema, he says, no, I had a different mahalach with you. Yirmiyah, it's not a riot to you. Anan hachim as nisan law. I had a different version. The shochalei chavrai le Yirmiyah, shnayim sheidu echo bebezdin zeh, ve'echo bebezdin zeh. So you have two Eidim, they testified in one Bezdin, they go to another Bezdin. Ma'ashi Yovu Bezdin. Could the Bezdin come and be mitzvah and so Bezdin v'yit starfu? So again, I'll leave it to the comment of Reb Nosson. There's a Shiloh Reb Nosson. If one comes separate days, could he be mitzvah if they do so or not? Reb Nosson says, Afilu Shabo Zach. It's not a problem, even in different days. I'll leave it to the comment of Nosson. The only Shiloh is according to Reb Nosson. Do we say Dafka Bechad Beidinu Mitzvah? Again, of a betrayed Bedino Mitzvah Leishna, and there he answers, again, Ani Eni Kadai Shetem Shalachtem Li. However, Lakach, now they're asking Das Tamidchem Noit to Sheet Starf. That was the second version. What to the third version in the Shiloh with the Yirmiyah? Mar Barchia Mar Hachu Shochlei. This is what they asked him. Shnaim Shehidu Bebezdin Zeh, V'chazru V'hidu Bebezdin Zeh, Mal Shiyavoy Echel Mikol Bezdin Mitzvah. So you have to add in that there was actually 3 times. So the Shiloh was, a person goes to Bezdin on Sunday, 2 Eidim, and every Bezdin has minimum of 3 Dayanim. And he goes to Bezdin, a different Bezdin on Monday, again in front of 3 Dayanim, and then on Tuesday goes to a different Bezdin in front of the 3 Dayanim. Can you take from every Bezdin 1 Dayan, or you don't even need really 3, you can really have 2, and the point is to be mitzdarif, they do son of the 2. In such a case, as long as you pick them out, they could give testimony that they heard from Eidim or not. So the Gemara says, "Ma'ashi yavo echem mikol bezdin mitzdarf." Leave it. I'm not so late to buy loch. That what? Ashtem adach edim mitzdarfin, and you can even be mitzdarf them dayani. Mivayin more than dayanim. It's even kol shekaim because they're even understanding their eidim from 2. They're not even 1/8. Eliki debalach leave the nakam there. I'm not so edim udolay mitzdarfin. You want to say about dayanim mitzdarfin? Dimalish no. And again he says, "Shalach lu ani eni kadai." Shatem shalachtem li avakach. Das tamidchem noitish. It's takei starfu. And then we have one last version how it was with Rab Yirmiyah. Ravina Amar Hachi Shachulei Shloisha Shiyashu Lekaim as a star. We're doing a hempik, and they all be Mekayim the star, and then they go take out the stamp and sign it. And I guess they do their initials, the Chule, they write their signatures. Umeis Echamehem. So it's taka good hempik because there was 3 dayanim. However, to sign it on the star, there's only 2. So the shaila was, do they have to write Shrichel Michta B'Maisav plus Avina? Be'etzem, we were 3 dayanim. V'chad is no longer with us. That's why you only see two signatures on the daf. V'chad le'soy loy. And again, the problem, what we're worried about is that a person's going to see a star with a hempik with all 2 dayanim. He's going to say, oh, even 2 dayanim is fine. Shalach lahu. Ani, eini kedai shatim shalachtim li. Be'etzim, you shouldn't have asked me. Elakach tas tamidchem noitre. That what? You have to talk b'chayshish. Shetzrichen lemichta b'maisiv. Tlasa avino. We were 3 dayanim. V'chad say one is no longer with us. Valda, the way he spoke, Veloshin Derech Eretz, Ayilule, Rabbi Yirmiyah, B'mei Medrasha, they brought him back into the base HaMedrash.